to shift wildly in the next week or two.
Yes, Daniel, do stay with us. We have a related update coming up. Polish Foreign Minister Sikorski has said that pressure must be placed on the aggressor and not the victim. The Polish Foreign Ministry spokesperson added that a ceasefire is essential before peace talks can begin. Meanwhile, Czech Prime Minister Petr Fiala has stressed that clear security guarantees from the United States and Europe are crucial for further negotiations. Fiala also emphasized that ending the killing is the immediate priority, a point agreed upon by European leaders. In addition, EU's Antonio Costa welcomed the US's willingness to provide security guarantees to Ukraine. He said that if no ceasefire is reached, the EU and US must increase pressure on Russia. Costa underlined the importance of transatlantic unity to achieve lasting peace. The EU Commission spokesperson also confirmed that all leaders reaffirmed their united support for Ukraine's sovereignty and its right to decide on peace terms. The coalition of allies also committed to maintaining full sanctions pressure on Russia until peace is secured. The Coalition of the Willing meeting has now concluded. We're now once again joined by Daniel Boardman. Daniel, we've seen Trump kind of go in this Russian direction in saying that a peace deal needs to be agreed upon and not a ceasefire, meaning terms need to be agreed upon to finalize this war. What are your thoughts in Donald Trump abandoning the idea of a possible temporary pause while negotiations move forward and a haste to agree on territorial concessions and other subjects to peace? Why is this an important part, and who does that favor going into these discussions?
Well, it is definitely I think, a more mature and realistic way of solving the war. I mean, the concept of a ceasefire was always a little bit ridiculous, right? The thought is just, oh, well, we'll all ceasefire and then, we'll all figure it out kind of from there. That's not generally how ceasefires happen or what they lead to. So if you're talking about solving a conflict, then we should actually talk about going to a peace deal and actually solving the conflict here and there. So that would really depend on the leverage that each side holds, and then what does each side want, right? So it gives Ukrainians some leverage in some ways, and it gives Russians some leverage in the other ways if they're able to negotiate successfully through the American side, and if the Europeans are shut out. So it doesn't really benefit one side over the other, but I think it rather refocuses the terms in which the international community is looking at the war, and I think it's a more realistic and mature way to try and solve this, because there were other conflicts that Trump, I think, has sort of gotten a bit full of himself, so he was able to just sort of yell peace and then it happened. But you saw, he did that India-Pakistan, and that's, that does not seem like a permanent solution to what Operation Sindoor and terrorism was really about. And then he did it sort of the 12-day war right after, Israel, to sort of, he had the leverage with Israel because the U.S. was sort of involved actively in that war to sort of yell stop and make it stop. Although you still see Iran and Israel still going out in the shadows, which they have been doing for years. You can't really just yell stop and have the sort of war of Russia and Ukraine stop. It's not the same thing. The U.S. isn't, kinetically involved. There's no U.S. troops actively fighting. These are Ukrainians and Russians fighting in like an active border war. This isn't an Israel-Iran war where the countries aren't even touching, or India-Pakistan where, the U.S. has leverage on both sides. So you can't just yell ceasefire. You can't just yell peace. You can't just demand peace happen. If this is going to be solved, the American State Department and the Trump administration is going to actually have to sit down and hammer this thing out and do an actionable peacetime solution that can make both sides agree to terms in which they can stop. And is that impossible? No. But you can't just fly to Alaska for 2 days, have a chat with Vladimir Putin, yell peace, and then solve the Russia and Ukraine war because you're better than Barack Obama. That's not how anything works.
Daniel, thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us. Always a pleasure to talk to you. We now move on to a related development.